What's the point of making your car motorcycle extremely loud? Having grown up with gearheads on a budget, I'd have to say it's the desire to have a sports car, something sportifast. But they can't afford a performance vehicle, and a loud exhaust is synonymous with performance. So they are essentially delusional, buying a cheap muffler that makes their car louder, i.e. they are cosplaying their performance car dreams. Just to be clear for those who don't know, the muffler is that big can-looking thing right behind your tailpipe. Those tend to rot off at the weld joints, so while the muffler is part of the exhaust, it's not the entire one. They are cheap to replace, and if you get the cheap mufflers, they tend to be loud. So the person you see driving one around with a loud muffler may just not have the cash to buy the manufacturer muffler. Yeah, I'll always have to sort by controversial for posts like this for the most honest and unpopular answers. But most of the time it's some form of I like how it sounds feels, and it doesn't matter to me if how it affects other people. No one is going to say that they like cosplaying as a performance car or want to get everyone's attention with how loud they are, even if that's what we all think. I'll be honest here. I had a motorcycle without a muffler. It was my first bike and cheap, and I didn't do it making the noise was fun. That's it. Didn't do it to show off, didn't care how it looked sitting on an engine that went vroom really loud when I twisted the handle was fun. A lot of motorcycle enthusiasts will say loud pipes save lives, and there's a grain of truth to that. More than a few motorcycle deaths can be attributed directly to other drivers simply not seeing them in their mirrors. To be fair though, a fair subset of those same motorcyclists will use that reasoning as an excuse to drive like a goddamn moron. As if making a lot of obnoxious noise somehow makes road safety everyone's responsibility except the drivers. So take that with a grain of salt. It does actually give a small increase in performance. The trouble is that the performance isn't a flat 50 HP or anything even close to that. It's a small percentage increase due to better exhaust flow. But trying to explain that to the need for speed wannabes is useless. They think it's fun and makes them feel cool. That's most of it. Much like any toy that makes noise, it's fun when you're the one using it. To everyone else, it's obnoxious. Sometimes for some cars it's for performance reasons. More exhaust flow typically means more power, but also more noise. I have a performance car I've tried, so hard to keep quiet, but sometimes exhaust mods are necessary to increase flow. I'll give you a real answer, as someone who's into cars. Engine sounds equals cool most of the time. Even in my little Corolla with a stock exhaust, I find it satisfying when merging onto the highway and I step on it and hear the engine. It's just something hobbyists find cool and fun. I will say though, you can definitely go wrong with it. And I do think it's a bit tacky to rip the muffler off with nothing else done to what would generally be considered an average car. I definitely look at that differently than someone who bought a nice exhaust or has a car that's loud from the factory. You have to consider an engine as an air pump. How more free the air can move through the engine, the more combustible air is available and the more horsepower it can generate. Air filters and exhaust dampers are slowing the air down. By removing them or by special ones with less damping, you will increase HP. With standard engines this helps only a few percent, but it does sound as a fast and tuned engine now. How else will everyone know I have a small penis? Even if people like to say they don't care about opinion and approval of others, they often very much do. I think we subconsciously crave for it. I once rented a BMW with sports package and the car sounded so good and did pops and crackles when I downshifted. I personally love driving and hearing a good sounding car, and when I rented that car I also loved to see the reaction of others to it. But for normal sedans that sound like fart cans, I honestly can't tell. Mystery for me too. Human mating call. On a modified engine, the freer flowing exhaust does have a purpose in that it allows the engine to evacuate exhaust gases more easily. That said, most people with a loud exhaust haven't actually gone into the engine enough to warrant that type of exhaust modification. It's just people who think that a fart can make their car faster or that drag pipes make their bike meaner somehow. For me personally, driving a stick shift, I like to hear the exhaust sound as that's how I shift. Most vehicles have the vibration of the engine so muted that it's hard to feel the engine anymore. If it's an automatic, loud exhaust just sounds like shit regardless. To advertise your douchebaggery. Not only do I like the sound, I enjoy cutting off the 40-70 pound dead weight stock muffler and putting something higher flow and lighter on the car truck. Between that, high quality plugs and wires with an air filter, you can easily gain 2-3 miles per gallon. Doesn't seem like much, but it adds up over the course of the car. I like to hear my engine. If it's not running right, I can get an idea of it by hearing it run, usually before it becomes a major problem. To advertise and broadcast to the world how utterly stupid you are. Vehicles to some people are a costume, or drag if you will, and it's their way of expressing who they are. Rich folks can afford high-performance cars which are loud. Race car drivers drive cars that are loud. And some men identify as a rich, cool race car driver, so they put on loud drag. Mufflers decrease noise, but also decrease performance, at least historically. It's fun. It's not for anyone else, it's simply just fun for the person driving. Going in tunnels and flooring it, under bridge overpasses and tight alleyways. Hearing the sound of the engine, love that purr,